bit rate of 128. But I haven't changed anything since the last time I've done this. Oh, WTF. I think we're back. I think. Let's see. Let me scroll up. Okay. Adrian is saying, Dana, get in the chat with us. Hey, Martine is here. Hi. We are back. Hopefully, we will stay back. I don't even know what's going on. Like, technology meltdown. Okay, yeah, it was saying 4 people were on. Now there's 38. I don't even know, like, what. Chaos, chaos. Every week there's chaos. Oh no. I just got the dropped frames detected thing again. What is going on? I don't understand. It's my bit rate, but I don't even know where to go to. Like, I don't even know what that is. This is what I'm saying. Like, it just starts saying words. Like, I don't know. I have done nothing since the last time I did the live stream. So why? Yeah, Kevin is saying you should try restarting everything, like turning your computer on and off. Marie says, Dana, you need to upgrade. Martine says, someone should make a compilation of Dana technology tantrums. Yeah, that's ridiculous. So, well, hopefully it'll go smooth from here on out, but we will see. Jackie says, hello, everyone. This is my first live stream ever. This is so cool that we can still communicate without our leader. Am I the leader? I don't know. I'm the one with the microphone, but I don't know about the leader. I think I am just the one that starts the conversation. Oh, that's nice. M. Fisher says, it's okay, Dina. We just talked about you while you were out of the room. Okay, that makes me feel secure. So let's see. I mean, what did I miss? Okay, Cecilia was saying that she got a CPTSD diagnosis preventing her from getting work. Is that something that you have to declare? I don't know if I would. If you don't have to like legally disclose that, I don't know if I would. Martine is saying, last night I had the most horrible nightmare ever. What was it? Is it gonna scare us if you tell us, or is it like a emotional nightmare? Okay. Let me scrolling, trying to catch up on everything that I have missed. Okay, John says he's got to go, work calls. So thank you for joining us, John, and I hope that we were able to give you some feedback that you were needing, and just you're worth it. So just know that, like, you're worth having somebody that treats you with dignity and respect. Dave says, question regarding dreams. I occasionally have a realistic dream about my ex. Any thoughts? I think a lot of it's just our brain processing what happened. I know for me, when I have dreams about, generally it's Jack. Like when I have nightmares, like night terrors and stuff, it's about Jack. I don't generally dream about Steve. I have learned that if I'm, it's like my brain's way of telling me to avoid a situation, or that I'm having a lot of like unresolved anxiety in my life. So, or to avoid a certain, like if there's somebody new, especially if I'm dating and it's a new situation, because I had this with Steve and I had this with this other guy Scott. When I began dating them, all of my night terrors kicked back up again, and I couldn't figure out why, because especially with Steve, because he was so charming. I'd known him for quite a while. I just I and I just thought, well, I just must have issues. Like I must have issues with men or relationships or commitment or trust, and so, but really, like deep down, my brain knew there. I mean, there were so many red flags there that I just didn't want to see. But the deeper part of my brain did see that, and it was picking up on it, and it was sending me warning signs in the form of a dream. So I think it's really important that we examine our dreams and see kind of what's going on. So, but I think too, if we're dreaming about our ex and it's an emotional dream or whatever, a lot of it is just because we were still in a relationship with them, and it just takes time for our brain to sort through and process all of that. And I think really at the end of the day, you're probably obviously the best judge of what you think that dream might mean to you. So, and it might mean different, the image, the symbolism of your ex might mean different things for you at different times in your life. It might mean that you're craving companionship. It might mean that you're having anxiety. It might be a warning sign. It might simply be that you just happened to drive past her favorite restaurant and you'd forgotten about it, but that just kind of stuck in the back of your mind. But, you know, I think it's very normal. So Martin was saying, as I think of the nightmare, I have no idea why it was so frightening, but I felt like I was losing it. And so maybe, and Trisha is saying, I wonder if a lot of codependent people have nightmares. I have them all the time. That is really interesting. I guess in a way I wouldn't be surprised, because I think, again, our brain sends us messages in whatever way it thinks it'll get our attention, especially if it's feeling that we're in danger. And, a lot of, so Martine, for your dreams and stuff, it might be that feeling that you are feeling out of control, or a lot of anxiety, or kind of helpless or powerless in some sort of area in your waking life, that's coming through in that dream. But that's interesting, the thought about codependents having more nightmares than other people. To me, it makes total sense. I mean, I would have never thought about that in a million years, but I guess it makes sense, because it's the feeling of, if we're having trouble setting boundaries, then we're going to probably continue to feel victimized. We're going to feel resentful. We're going to feel anxious. We're going to feel depressed. We're going to have all of these unpleasant feelings that are not being resolved during the day. But those emotions tend to they don't just go away, right? Like we can stuff things deep down inside, but they're going to come out somehow, some way. Either, and then they're probably going to grow over time. So if we're not dealing with certain issues in our waking life, maybe that's coming out as we're gaining weight, or we're losing weight, or we're developing addictions, or we're feeling depressed, or feeling really anxious, or kind of do drinking, or using illegal drugs, smoking a lot of pot, or taking a lot of prescription medication. Like a person's gonna start numbing out if they're feeling a lot of tension and pressure and these uncomfortable feelings on a regular basis. It's kind of, I guess, our way of like grinding ourselves down. But because that way of living has become our new normal, it's really hard to see that there's a problem, because that we're just used to not asserting ourselves, and we're just used to kind of just sucking things up and not dealing with things. Interesting concept. I will be curious to hear from other people as far as that goes. Hot Potato says, yes, I'm ready for a ton of codependency videos as well. And Believe in Love says, Dana, I'm feeling better from narcissist recovery and I'm looking forward to new videos about empaths or codependency. So I am working on them, and it's videos. I tell you, like it's there are days where I can. So here's like my whole process for doing a video. I normally okay. Let me back up. Like rewind. When I first started doing YouTube, I didn't think anybody was going to be watching these really. So there was no pressure like on me. I started recording on my phone, and this was like my iPhone, and I had no microphone and I didn't have lighting, and I just I didn't care. It was just me talking, basically me talking to me, and hoping that maybe somewhere in on the planet that my information could help them. And I didn't think I just didn't think that it was my channel was going to have this kind of response. And so what I have found that the more time has gone on and the more my channel's taken off, I have all this pressure that I'm putting on myself, because now that I know people are watching, like it can be so intimidating. And whereas before I didn't outline a video, I didn't do anything. I was just talking off the cuff about different topics. And so, but then I got a lot of feedback from people that were saying, you need to make your videos shorter and get to the point and blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, and I didn't know anything about YouTube when I started. I watched some Eckhart Tolle videos before. I'm not big into technology, believe it or not, right? Like, surprise, surprise. I, I, I wasn't big into watching videos on YouTube, so I did not know so many things. Like, it has been such a huge learning curve. So, and I did so many things wrong with my Red Flags of a Narcissist series that caused a lot of people, I think, a lot of pain, and it caused me a lot of pain because I inadvertently caused a lot of people a lot of pain, and that was not my intention. So just for example, like with my Red Flags of a Narcissist series, I spoke about mainly my experience with problematic people, which was from a female perspective with a male abusers. And so, I didn't mean to minimize what men went through, and I did by doing that. So I felt terrible about that, and then I was in this huge scramble to kind of right that wrong, and it's just been like one learning curve after another. So I know when I start this Red Flags of a Codependent series, it's gonna be just a brand new learning curve, and I'm trying to just get over that. So, kind of long story short, I did record a handful of videos this past weekend, but I don't like any of them. So my goal is to get a minimum of one video out a week. I will be spending all this weekend recording, and hopefully I'll get 2 or 3 videos out, because I don't want the series to take like a year. Like, I want to be able to get it out to you guys, a ton of videos like I did with the Red Flags of a Narcissist series. I'd like to be able to get a ton of videos out within a short period of time. It's just I've got to deal with my own doing videos, like, kicks up a crazy amount of insecurities, and there's just this huge like growth that comes from doing videos. So, and I really want to make sure that I'm kind of touching the points I need to touch, but in like the most beneficial and helpful way, because a lot of people, myself included, for a long time there, had this. The topic of codependency is a really sensitive topic. A lot of people feel very re-victimized by it. It's just kind of this idea of I didn't deserve what happened to me. I own no responsibility for what happened to me. Had I known about narcissists, had I known about that there were people in the world that manipulated like this, I would have done things differently. And so and I felt the exact same way. like, oh, well, if I knew the rules of the game we were playing, like I wouldn't have gotten tangled up in it. And so I felt very angry and resentful when anybody would even bring up the topic of codependency. So I just want to make sure that I am able to kind of walk that line and not potentially like re-victimize other people or you know. And I guess I just need to do a video that encourages people to watch the series with an open mind and to hold on to what helps and let the rest go, because I'm sure it's going to upset a lot of people, and I'm sure that others of them are going to be, because like people are, again, they're going to like hear the message at different stages of their own healing and understanding. So those that are ready for that conversation about boundaries and standards and all of that. And again, this is not to say too that a person has to necessarily be codependent or even have issues with boundaries and standards in order to be abused by a narcissist or a sociopath. Like sometimes all of that doesn't even come into play. Like, so I don't know. There's lots of stuff that I want to cover on there, but just to kind of give you an idea, it's not like I'm slacking off, or that I don't care, or that it's not a priority. It really is. I just like I just have become very neurotic about making videos, and I'm sorry. So Tarisha says, Dana, two of my ex-narcs would always try to kiss me while I was crying or giving them a piece of my mind. It was so off-putting. What do you think of this? I think it was their way of spinning the situation, right? And having kind of power and control back in their court. And they, didn't, I guess they probably didn't want to either fight, or they didn't want to deal with you crying. And so they just kind of thought, well, they weren't interested in that. And so what they were interested in was making out with you, which sounds like something a narcissist would totally do, right? Like some very self-centered, self-serving behavior. Incredibly painful to be minimized, like that. So I'm sorry. Sorry that you went through that. That's really inconsiderate, So, okay, let me scroll down. Cha-cha-cha. Hold on. Wait. What's going on? Okay, we're still having mass chaos in the feed with it freezing up. And yeah, Hot Potato says, hey guys, we're not even that bad. We're hurting, but just think of all the people who are still in the dark. Oofed. Yeah, I tell you that, oh man, that clarity, like nothing feels as good as clarity. Nothing feels as good as clarity. I just am addicted to that feeling. It's so empowering to not even necessarily just with this stuff. I mean, this is huge, but just in general, just that certainty of, yeah, like this is the next step. Like this is what I'm going to do. This is who I can trust. This is what I want. Like just knowing ourselves enough to know what we're about and what we like and what we don't like, and just owning it, right? Like just owning our power and control and just moving forward. And it's an awesome, awesome feeling. So, oh, hey, Peace Pom Pom is here. Marissa says, oh my gosh, this live stream is giving me trust issues. Oh, she says, because it's unreliable. This live stream is unreliable, and it's giving me trust issues too. And it's giving me, it does nothing for my self-esteem. Just know that. Because I like there was somebody on last week that was joking around about technology, and they're like, well, don't you do this every week? Like, why are you still having issues with the live stream? Valid question. It's a valid question. And it's welcome to my world. Like, this is my adventures in technology. It never goes well. So let's see. Martine says, I think it's a good thing that you take time, Dana. I've been thinking this. Um, so let's see. Scrolling up, scrolling up. John says, I never thought I'd experienced a narcissist. And okay, so here's something else, John, since you're kind of new. You're kind of new to this. Real quick, Milt was saying, is anybody getting a feed from Dana? My Dana has gone gray rock. Like, no, I'm here. I'm here. I did not go gray rock. I have not gone no contact. Like, I love you guys, and this is I'm not playing games. Like, it's just the storm. So here's the thing with narcissists. A lot of people tend to really get caught up in that label. Understandably so, right? Because this is what we're talking about. This is what my channel is named. And so, and I was the same way. So I think you're going to find that the more you kind of get into this, you're going to start asking a lot of questions like, well, is this person a narcissist, or are they a sociopath or a psychopath? And which is now called antisocial personality disorder. Or, you know, maybe they're not a narcissist. Maybe they're just a really selfish jerk. So, or maybe they're borderline personality, or maybe they're bipolar. And so a lot of people are trying to figure out the label, and they're trying to figure out, well, what on earth did I encounter? Like, because it doesn't make sense, right? We probably haven't encountered a whole lot of people like this in our lives, or maybe not to this level. And I would encourage you, and so here's kind of what's crazy making about that is the reality is we will never know, because we aren't, you know, clinically diagnosing a person. So, you know, my videos are all about like problematic behavior. And so a lot of different people can have problematic behavior, and that's kind of all we need to know. Like, that's kind of the bare minimum that we need to understand in all of this, because you could you could drag a person kicking and screaming to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist of any kind and say, you know, look, here's this person, I need you to diagnose them, and be like, okay, person, do your thing. Right. And odds are that that manipulative person is probably A, not going to go to therapy, and B, if they do go to therapy, they're going to be putting on that charm, and it's really easy for them to know what to say, because they are like social chameleons, and they know what to say, they know what to do, they know how to act. And it takes a really highly skilled therapist who's super familiar with diagnosing personality disorders, who does this like day in and day out, to really be able to spot a narcissist or a sociopath. Borderlines are a lot easier to spot. Bipolar is a lot easier to spot. But narcissists and sociopaths, not so much. And so and this can be very crazy making, right? So then you might have a person who's got this problematic partner, and let's say they did go to a therapist or a psychiatrist, and they said, you know what, I don't see it. Like, I don't think there's anything, that your partner is not a narcissist, right? Well, so if the person, and you know, if you or me, whoever has the problematic partner, is thinking, oh, well, I guess that means they're just the run-of-the-mill selfish jerk. And so then in the victim's mind, the target's mind, they might be telling themselves, well, since they're not a narcissist, they're just the run-of-the-mill selfish jerk, I guess they can be fixed, right? I guess their behavior can somehow be fixed. So maybe given enough time or love or rehab or therapy, that they can get better. But the reality is, you know, a person's not going to change unless they really want to change. So even if a person could get better, it doesn't mean that they will get better. Just like we know that alcoholics can get sober, right? But not all alcoholics do. So just because a person can get better doesn't mean that they will get better. And a lot of times in situations with personality disorders, I mean, you're talking years of intensive psychotherapy for them to undo how they relate to the world. And even then, like, if you can even get a narcissist to, or a sociopath to go to therapy, oftentimes it tends to make them worse because this is their personality is just it's just, I mean, it's sad to say, but it's just kind of broken. And so there's not a lot of, forward movement on that scale of change for them. But with that said, because I always get emails from people that feel like they're a narcissist, and they panic and they're like, well, I'm tired of hurting people. I want to change. I'm a narcissist. If you have that awareness that you have a problem, that there's certain things in your personality that are problematic, by all means work towards changing them. The problem with narcissists and sociopaths is a lot of them truly don't ever think that they have the problem, and they don't care. So it's those two things. Like, they lack insight and they lack motivation to change. If a person has insight that there's a problem and they have motivation to change, then sure, change is totally possible if they put in the work, right? And the only way that any of us will really know if what a person's capable of is just giving them time. And so you'll have to ask yourself, okay, how much time, and really how much money too, right, are you willing to throw at this? So if they're going to be going to rehab or therapy or whatever, I mean, are you willing to spend a year of weekly therapy? Ideally, individual therapy, not couples therapy, at least not for a while, because they are manipulative. And there's kind of this running joke or running saying, very true, that anything you say to a narcissist can and will be used against you. And there's a lot of truth to that. So that's kind of why I'm not a huge fan of couples therapy, at least not in the beginning. But if really even ever, like, they need to do their own work. Like, they have a lot of work to do and a lot of personal growth that they need to go through. But getting clear, like, just kind of what's your time frame, what kind of changes are you needing to see in order for you to stick around, and then kind of reverse engineering your approach and how long you're willing to stick around. And then you'll know, right? So then you'll know, okay, well, I've given this a year of weekly intensive psychotherapy with a therapist who's familiar with emotional abuse, and I'm seeing progress. So just getting crystal clear on kind of what needs to happen. So let me scroll down. Because yes, I mean, the thing is, a person doesn't have to be a narcissist in order to ruin your life. Like, they can be just your average, like, run-of-the-mill selfish jerk is enough to cause a tremendous amount of destruction in your life. So, and this also, again, it goes back to knowing yourself, like knowing what is deal breaker behavior for you, knowing what you want and need in a partner, and being okay with, dating. Oftentimes you're going on, it's a process. Like, you're probably not going to just marry the first person that you see. And even if a person does, I kind of always question that, because it's like, well, do you really love them, or do you love the idea of them? Because I think that's really weird when people will talk about, oh, I just knew from, across the room, or on our first date that she or he was the one. And I just kind of think, well, then maybe, are they really that discriminating? Like, do they really know themselves well enough to know what they really want in a partner? And maybe the answer is that they really do. But to me, I think, it takes time, and it takes really just, going slow and all that. So, okay, Bill says, hello, Dana and everyone. I hope everyone is having a good evening. Thank you, Dana, for all you do. Well, welcome, Bill, and thank you. I am glad to do this. It's really, it's interesting, and it's enjoyable, and it's really fun kind of keeping up with people from all over the world, and seeing all of their and sharing all of the aha moments and lessons learned is really, I just really get a big kick out of that. It's just really interesting. Okay, Hot Potato brings up a really great point. She says, "To this day, I miss him, and I wonder if he was codependent too. But he played mind games and he triangulated me, so I have to remind myself of that." Yeah, so here's kind of my take on codependency. It's a person, you know, I think for a I think for a long time myself, and I think a lot of people tend to think that a person's either a narcissist or a codependent. That the narcissists tend to be self-centered and codependents tend to be selfless. And to some extent, that is true. Like general, you know, just kind of broad brush descriptions of them. That's true. However, I think a lot of codependent people can also be narcissists because it's that dependency upon another person. And so narcissists tend to take that to an extreme where they're parasitic. Like they're not just dependent, like they're parasitic. And so and they're emotional, they're energy vampires, right? So like they just suck the life out of other people around them. And so I'm going to be covering this in my video series, codependency. But codependency, it's one of those words that's very nebulous. There's a lot of different definitions for it floating around out there, and the word has really grown and morphed over time. And so again, like you can ask 6 different people and get 6 very different definitions. So, my kind of take on codependency is, I mean, codependent people by and large tend to either be very, they either need to feel needed or they tend to be very needy. It kind of goes in like one of 2 groups. And a lot of times they do tend to be people pleasers. They do tend to be doormats. They do tend to, have a pattern of one-sided relationships where, they give a lot more than they get. Those kinds of things. A lot of those types of character traits do tend to be more of, kind of like the good people of the world. But at the same time, narcissists have a hard time staying single for any length of time. Like they could be, and it's sort of like this evil form of codependency that they have. Not to say that our that our form of codependency is a good form, but I guess in a way it kind of is. It's like good, and it's like over giving. It's just kind of a good character traits taken to an extreme, and then like the dark side of that is over like this weird form of like overtaking, which is what narcissists do, but they're still in this weird way dependent upon somebody. So it's like this dark side of codependency, if that makes any sense. Like whatsoever. Let's see. Belinda says, "My recent ex, who's 31, is a narcissist, but I can't understand how he is still friends with with his only other ex who he was with during his ages of 19 to 25. They never slept together. She's married too." Wait, they were together for 6 years and they never slept together? I don't know. I'm missing something there. Because that doesn't make sense. Pepper said, I'm not saying that I'm people can't date for any length of time and not sleep together, but that is very, very unusual. Like very unusual. Pepper says, "Dana, I'm starting to think the ex is more sociopathic. He seems to be more about power and control and not so much about admiration. Is this normal?" Yeah, well, all sociopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are sociopaths. Sociopaths more have, um, they have a pattern of exploiting people. So they tend to be more of like the emotional con artists and con artists in general. So they tend to have a criminal history. They tend to they're just slippery. I mean, they will say whatever they need to say in order to get whatever they want to get. A lot of narcissists aren't. Like a lot of most, clinically, narcissists tend to be very brash, very more of like the overt narcissist. So they're very in your face. They don't apologize. It's all about them. They're grandiose. They're very selfish. They're very self-centered. You can kind of just you kind of know when you're around a narcissist because they're like that, quite quote unquote, like that guy. I mean, they're just or that girl. They're just really full of themselves, and you just and they're just exhausting to be around because it's just all about them. And they use and abuse people. Sociopaths like exploit people. So narcissists tend to, maybe they're abusing people out of their selfishness because they just think that everything should be all about them. Sociopaths are going to lay a lot more of a plan. So I would say, Jack and Steve, the guys I was with, would definitely fall more in the camp of sociopath than narcissist. But the reason I talk more about narcissists is because it's the common denominator for both of them, and there's a lot of overlap with that. And so, what drives really all behavior for manipulative people is that need for power and control, and that's a trait, of a person who's self-absorbed because it's all about them. So they need all of the power and control over themselves, over other people, over the situation. So, okay. Okay, people are giving John different words to look up. There is a page on my website. Let me get to it real quick here, and let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Well, where did I file that? I swear. Give me just a second. Okay, if you go to my website, which is narcissistsupport.com, and you do... Actually, hold on a second. You do a search for words you need to know. The article will come up, but I'm going to post the link in the chat. And it's a great, and I'm also going to post it in the video description as well here. So hold on a second. It's on common words that are really helpful. Not sure. Okay, it's common words and definitions that I highly recommend. So it covers words like gray rock. It covers concepts of no contact, enabling, codependency, flying monkeys. There's all of this terminology around it. Stockholm syndrome, trauma bonds, all of this kind of terminology. So I just posted a link to it, and that is worth reading. And different communication styles, like pretty much any definition that's surrounding narcissism or abuse is going to be on that page. So Elle, they're talking about how does a person become a narcissist, and Elle is saying they're not all born like that, but since in childhood, people are the most sensitive to outside influences, most of them become narcissists at that time, usually some sort of trauma in their childhood. Yeah, and I would agree, by and large. Sociopaths, I don't know. Like, well, even with narcissists, I think even if you kind of expand that circle a little bit more and you include just kind of general, like emotionally manipulative people or just energy vampires. I've known quite a few in my life, and you probably have too, I've known their family, and I really don't know like where they get it from. Like their siblings might be totally normal, and they are not. Like they are high conflict people. They're drama, they're toxic. They just leave this trail of tears behind them and destruction, and they're just manipulative. They're just high conflict. Like they're looking to argue, they're looking to be right. They're looking to just be difficult. I don't know. Nurture and nature, I'm sure both play a large part in it, but it's very strange. So, um, yes, Coral says the narcissist tried to force me to think a certain way and then punished me if he thought I was thinking anything else but what he demanded that I think. That is very common, because they don't think that everything's got to be about them. So they don't give their target this, they don't respect our individuality. It's this idea of that we're kind of one and the same. There was a great book that we just finished for the book club. Oh no, it's for this book club next month. I just read ahead. It's a book called Controlling People by, I just lost her name, and she's absolutely fantastic, and I talk about her all the time. Shoot. If you go to my website and you go to book club, actually, I still have that page open. I will do that. Patricia Evans. The book is called Controlling People: How to Recognize, Understand, and Deal with People Who Try and Control You by Patricia Evans. And there will be a link down below in the description too. But it's an absolutely fantastic book. And she's got some really interesting insights as to kind of how, like, just the thinking of controlling people. And so she has this whole analogy of what she calls Teddy, and it's like a teddy bear. And so that to abusive people, they don't view us as individuals, they view us as extensions of themselves. Like we're just a teddy bear. And so they don't understand when we act a certain way that we're not acting like how they think that we should act. And that's why they flip out. But it's a game, it's an understanding, it's a way of relating to the world and to us that doesn't make any sense because it exists in their mind. And so the way she sums it up is, and I'll be posting my notes here on that book in the next couple of days, and on that book club page on my website that you can read. And I take like 11 pages of notes, so very thorough. If you don't have time to read the book or you're not a reader, so yeah, it's very, very interesting. This kind of one, I think she calls it the one mind, where it's they expect to have one mind. So you have to think like they think, like you have to act like how they want you to act, and you have to and she uses, like, one of the examples that she gives in the book is a mother and her child, and it was probably a well-intentioned mother, and she said that parents do this a lot. But it was interesting because I've done this. So I'm going to make it a point from here on out to not do this because it's not cool. But anyways, so she gives the example of this mother is with her child and they're going to get ice cream. And the mom says, "Oh, well, what flavor of ice cream would you like?" And the little girl says, "I'd really like vanilla." And the mom says, "Oh, honey, don't you want, chocolate fudge brownie?" And the little girl says, "No, I would like vanilla." And the mom says, "But you love chocolate fudge brownie." And the little girl says, "No, I'm in the mood for vanilla." And the mom says, "Oh, she'll have chocolate fudge brownie." And then just kind of takes over thinking like, well, but she would like this so much more than just plain vanilla. So it's the idea that thinking about that, and again, people do this with kids all the time, thinking that we somehow know best. And maybe we do know best. Like maybe we do know that they really don't like vanilla ice cream, or they really don't like, carrots, that they like peas instead, or whatever. But it's giving that child their voice. And that's a part of growing up and figuring out, who we are as an individual. But she was saying, abusive people don't ever stop doing that. So ideally, parents stop doing that, right? As their child gets older, they let them have more and more autonomy and more freedom. So they're not micromanaging all of their decisions all of the time. And it's problematic when they are trying to do that, right? Because then you're not allowing this child to be an individual. So it's just such a great book on so many levels. And I keep talking about the doing that's another I wanted to ask you guys. Okay, so book club, doing book club videos. I was thinking about, how would you want me to do a book club video, I guess, is the first question, where I just go through my notes. But again, keeping in mind that my notes are 11 pages and I'm a talker. So like, it might be a really long video, or I could break it up into a series of shorter videos. So maybe, for example, just throwing this out there. So what if we were to do a book? So like, for example, this book on controlling people, I could do, in theory, a series of like one video a day and break the book into a total of like 30 concepts or something, or 30 quotes or something like that. And then just discuss each one in a video that's ideally less than 10 minutes long, ideally less than like 7 minutes long. Or would you want to do a live stream that's just specifically dedicated to the book, and it's like just one long live stream and we just discuss the book? So I guess for those of you that are listening to this now, comment down below and let me know how you would like for that to happen, and how you think that would be the easiest. We could have a certain day of the week where we could do a live stream about the book, or kind of how you do it, however you want it. Okay, let me see. There's lots of great questions here. Let me scroll up. Okay, I'm not sure if I fully understand this question, but let me do my best. Okay, Elle says, I have a question about codependency. If you realize what empty buckets you have and you don't let that affect you anymore, how to be happy when that was making you happy? Well, okay, if I understand this correctly. Well, see, okay. It's all about having like healthy boundaries and standards. So there's nothing wrong with helping, right? There's nothing wrong with giving and taking great satisfaction in that. But if you're giving with the intention of getting, right, then it's manipulative. Then it's then that's when resentment builds up. And so I think a lot of codependent people, again, there's a spectrum of codependency. And so like for me, for example, I have been in helping fields pretty much my whole life. Like I've had moments where I've gotten so burned out, I've done something totally polar opposite, but I always have gravitated back towards helping. And it was never with the expectation of getting anything from that. I'm a nurse, and before that I was a teacher. So it was never the idea that my students or my patients would ever be able to give back to me. I just really, really enjoyed giving. It just really brings me a lot of joy to do that in certain contexts, right? So I've learned that with friendships, because before, and even relationships, especially relationships, I would give and give and give. But I did have that expectation of, I was trying to earn their love, or I was trying to earn their friendship. And then I would always feel disappointed and burned out. And, it was just exhausting because, especially if you're in these kind of like one-sided dynamics where you're with this person who is overtaking and you're overgiving. It's like that's how that energy vampire stuff happens, right? So realizing that, okay, I like to give, but I need to do it within a healthy context. I need to learn how to be able to say no and not feel guilty about it. And because and I think a lot of us are in this boat, right? So, like, if we can learn to say no, then when we do say yes, we really mean that with our full heart. And it's not out of guilt or obligation or fear or intimidation or any type of, like, weird, squirrely dynamic. It's, I want to help because I really want to help. I have no expectations, like, that's it. And then you knowing yourself well enough to be like, you know what, I can help, or I can do kind of whatever from, you know, for an hour every Wednesday, or for however long that you can do something, instead of just having it be like, yes, I can swim oceans to make you okay, and I can go way above and beyond. It's just knowing, like, healthy boundaries. So there's nothing necessarily wrong with the way that you've been going about filling up your empty buckets. If you've been doing it, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, like, enjoying time with friends, or enjoying a relationship, or enjoying volunteering. It's kind of just doing it within a way that you're respectful, you're valuing yourself and you're valuing your time, and that you're doing it in with healthy boundaries and standards. And then that way you're not, over giving to friends and over giving to relationships or your job or what have you, trying from like a place of, like, insecurity, or a place of trying to prove your worth, because we don't need to earn anybody's love. Like, that's really unhealthy thinking. And I never realized that I was doing that, but when I really sat down to think about it, it was like, yeah, I think that's exactly where it's coming from. Like, I tend to feel like I need to earn. I'm really uncomfortable if people are giving to me. Like, I need to be the one that gives to them. And so that's got to get more in balance, right? Or it's going to burn you out. And then you're not helping anybody, because then you're burned out, right? So, okay, Coral, great comment. She says, I'm a member of Mensa. My IQ is over 135, yet I found I had no power to defend myself. I felt like a moron. So I get this kind of similar question a lot from a lot of different people. And if you know a little bit about my story, I at the time I was working at a domestic violence shelter, and I was actually teaching the red flags. So it was you would think, like, if anybody would know this stuff, it would be me. So how did this keep happening to me? And part of it is I realized I was only teaching like a third of the red flags that were really out there. And there was a lot of realizations that I had with that. But the point of this is, so I get a lot of emails from people that'll say, well, Dana, I'm a doctor, or I'm an attorney, or I am incredibly intelligent and I should know better. How come? Or I'm a therapist. I actually get quite a few therapists or psychiatrists or psychologists emailing me that that are really freaked out because they don't understand how they missed this. And the reality is our IQ or our training has very little to do with this, because what's driving us to get involved with these people to begin with oftentimes has a lot to do with our empty buckets and our different insecurities that have grown over time to become vulnerabilities. And so it's like if we're starved out in some sort of way, then it's like our brain downshifts. And it's so focused on getting that need met that it throws logic and reason out the window. It's sort of like when we're starving, right? If you haven't eaten in 3 or 4 days, right? It's pretty much near impossible. You're probably going to eat anything that you see. Like, if you saw a half-eaten sandwich in the garbage in like a street can, and you didn't have any certainty that you were going to have food anytime soon, odds are you're probably going to eat that sandwich, right? So, like, our ability to be discriminating and to have kind of this attitude of abundance, goes away when we need a need that needs to be met. Like our brain kind of gets that tunnel vision. We develop this attitude of scarcity. We want to cling on, not cling on. We want to cling on to what we know. That's a sure thing. And so it's, and then kind of at a more, so that's like a super starved out level. That's like an empty bucket, right? A low bucket would be where somebody hasn't maybe eaten, in 10 hours and then they go grocery shopping, right? And so odds are your brain is going to be directing you like, hey, we need to eat. I'm really hungry, and you're probably going to be hangry, right? And you're probably going to be making food choices that are really high calorie, high fat foods. You're probably not going to be gravitating towards fruit and vegetables at that point because your body starts going into starvation mode. And so it starts like screaming at you that it needs glucose, like it needs like high carb stuff, high carb, high sugar stuff. So it's the same thing with our emotional needs. If we have this empty bucket where we're starved out for affection or attention or importance or love or these things, it's really hard for us to be discriminating. It's really hard for us to go and be able to be choosy when we're dating because all of a sudden everybody starts looking good because we're so starved out in that area. And this is again like why IQ and stuff has nothing to do with it. But here's the thing with the empty buckets. So just knowing about them, like knowing that this is how our brain works, like this is how kind of our survival mechanisms happen. This is why cognitive dissonance sets in, okay? Which is this whole app. I just am so in love with the concept of cognitive dissonance because once we fully understand that, then it's like this amazing life hack. Like if our life is not making sense, it's generally due to cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance, it doesn't just happen in abusive relationships. It happens anytime that we're justifying our actions. And so what cognitive dissonance is it's the mental distress that we feel between our thoughts and our actions. So if we have the thought, for example, that we want to be that we would never be in a relationship with somebody who cheated, and then our action is going to be to stay in this relationship with this person that we think is not cheating on us, but we find out a new thought comes down, right? Like we encounter this other person who says, "Hey, so and so is cheating on you." Then we have the kind of the option we have then is we either accept that new thought. We have to line up our thoughts and our actions. So then we either accept that new thought that this person is cheating. And if we accept that new thought, we then have to take a new action, which is probably going to be to leave, right? But if our action is going to stay, if we're going to stay in that relationship because it's meeting some sort of an emotional or physical need for us, right? Then odds are we're going to justify our action, which in any Jerry Springer episode is a perfect example of this. So a person's going to justify this action. They're going to tell themselves, well, maybe the other woman was throwing herself at him, or maybe it was because I really was working too much, or maybe it never happened to begin with. Maybe that other person was just bitter and jealous. And so we're going to justify our thought and hold on to our old thoughts to make sure it lines up with the action that we're going to take. This happens across the board. So let's say, for example, if I am wanting to lose weight, right? So if I want to lose 20 pounds and I tell myself my thought is, I want to lose 20 pounds. I am going to go to the gym after work. Okay. If I decide, you know what, I'm just really tired. So I have this new thought, I'm really tired. Then I need to take a different action, right? So either I need to just suck it up and go to the gym, or if I go home instead, then I have to get a different thought to match that action. So then my new thought might be, well, you know what? I really didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I'll spend twice as long at the gym tomorrow. Okay. Now that mental distress has been soothed over. And so we're constantly in different stages of cognitive dissonance whenever we're trying to justify bad behavior. And it's interesting to kind of be able to slow your thinking down and pay attention to the different justifications that we use, because cognitive dissonance, it's really like a fog. When it sets in fast and it's dense, and it's really hard for us to think our way out of it, because what happens is, because our brain is downshifting to where it's getting these more basic needs met, that we might think that we're able to think our way out of it, but 99.95% of the time we're not being rational. We think we are, but we're not. We think we're being rational, but what we're really being is rationalizing. And that's what gets us into trouble, because when we're rationalizing reality, we're not in reality. We're playing pretend. So it's, it's very, very dangerous. And so this is how people get caught up in cults. This is how people get caught up in online dating scams. This is how people get caught up in abusive relationships. It's the brain. The brain is at work. And that's the thing. So like, once we know about this is really how the brain works. This is how it downshifts when we have these basic needs. And this is all based off of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay. So, and this is kind of my spin on his hierarchy of needs, which I personally think is very accurate. So, and it explains a lot. but once we know that this is what's going on, like this is kind of our different survival mechanisms kicking into place, then we can use our logical brain to pay attention to when it starts happening. But again, and this takes practice, because it happens so dang quickly, especially when there's a lot at stake, like a relationship. I mean, it's easier to kind of slow it down and pay attention when things maybe don't matter a whole lot, like not going to the gym, or eating something that, like ice cream or something that we're not wanting to eat if we're trying to lose weight. It's easier to see that cognitive dissonance at work on something that's not so high stakes. It's really hard to see in a relationship. Of course, it's a lot easier to see in other people. That's kind of the benefit of the support group, because you can see other people's cognitive dissonance at work. And for me, I'm really unique in the fact that I've had different multiple perspectives of abusive relationships. I've been in them. I talk about them now. I lead support groups, and I used to work at a domestic violence shelter. So I have just kind of all of these different angles that I view this stuff through. And it's really interesting. So to be in this support groups and to talk to people, and for them to say exactly what they're saying, what you're saying, right? Like, I am an intelligent person. How did this happen to me? And this is another one of the main reasons a lot of people that get caught up in more extreme forms of cognitive dissonance, like cults, like online scams, often end up killing themselves, because when that fog clears and the reality sets in of, oh my God, this person was a scammer and I've given them my life savings, or I cannot believe I got caught up in this cult and I, was, sacrificed my child, or left my child, or was going to kill myself. When like the reality of what they have been doing sets in, that's intense, because there's a lot of other people that can see the situation clearly. And so having to come to terms with the fact of, I don't know how I got caught up in this, and so what's wrong with me, right? And so like a lot of members of cults tend to be very educated. Like a lot of the members, I think it was the Heaven's Gate cult, were engineers. So again, this has nothing to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with emotion. Same thing with online scams. A lot of these people are, professional people that, then their families, like, I don't know how he or she got caught up with this person. This is very obviously a scam. It's very obviously like problematic behavior. And they just gave this person $100,000 and now they're destitute. Like, how does this happen? But it's cognitive dissonance. So when a person's lonely enough, they do things that they would not normally do otherwise. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation. Sorry about that. I hope that made sense. Okay. Oh, sounds like an interesting conversation. Coral asks, is there such a thing as spiritual abuse? So, I believe so. Yeah. I don't quite know. Okay, here we go. Coral says, this abusive narcissist abuses me and then insults me when I try to defend myself. He tells me that he is a better Christian than me and will then enumerate proof. Okay, so that's what they do. And that is that's what they do. So they tend to use guilt, obligation, intimidation, especially when there's religion involved. And so it's really easy for them to, especially if they can put on a good front and they can come, ooh, gosh, almost knocked everything over. Especially if they can come across as sincere, then it's really easy for them to get other members of the church or the congregation to rally around them. And then they just like, they wear this like robe of righteousness, right? And so they have all these people rallying around them for their victim to give them another chance, and that really they are so spiritual, or they blame the victim. And so when I was working at the domestic violence shelter, I've told the story before. There was a really well intended, very helpful, amazing church that was about, I don't know, about half a block away from the shelter that I worked at. And, a lot of people do turn to God, especially in times of struggle, right? So if they're at a domestic violence shelter, they might be hitting rock bottom in a lot of different ways. And a lot of our ladies would go to the church. And it was really common for this church, they didn't believe in divorce, and they would try to talk them into staying. And it was so frustrating for us because they were very well intended, but they just didn't get it. They just didn't get it. And so they, I mean, like, then a lot of times the ladies would end up going back because they were told, well, you need to forgive and forget, and forgiveness, this is what it means to be a good Christian. And it's, again, a lot of like, well intended advice, but it's not when you're dealing with a highly manipulative person. And so, like, let me just kind of cover my take on forgiveness really quick, because I think this gets manipulated a lot. So I am not a fan of the concept of forgive and forget. I think that's really dangerous thinking, and manipulative people are relying on us to forgive and forget. So to me, forgiveness is like trust, in that it's earned. It's not just blindly given. And so if a person, and it's earned through a series of, like, they need to be sincerely accountable and responsible for their behavior, and they need to take massive action in repairing the damage that they've done. If those two things are not there, then it would be really foolish for us to forgive in the sense of the word that people generally, when they mean forgive, that's what they mean. So I'm not saying to hold a grudge if a person's not doing those two things. I mean that it would be foolish for us to allow them to continue to stay in our life if they're obviously not sorry for what they've done. Okay? We can still, quote unquote, forgive them. And again, I don't even like this word. I think the word itself is so misused that it's dangerous. My definition and understanding of forgiveness is where if a person is not sorry, not sincerely sorry, right? Not sincerely sorry for what they've done, that we decide that we're going to release anger towards them and towards the situation. And that we're going to, because we deserve that. It's kind of the declaration of, I'm not going to allow this to destroy my life. Like, that's kind of, to me, that's really what forgiveness is in a nutshell. And it has nothing to do with, if the person is sorry, that's great. If they're truly sincere, we can allow them back into our life. If they're not truly sincere and sorry, we don't allow them back into our life. Either way, we decide this is not going to destroy our life. We're not going to give this person any more power and control over us, is really what it is. So they will often use a person's faith against them and say, oh, well, I thought, thought you were Christian, so I thought you really needed to forgive. Or, oh, I guess you're holier than thou. Or, what about treating others like you would want to be treated? So it's really important that we realize that these are very common manipulations for manipulative people. And I did a video on this a while back. I think it's the Ask a Question episode number 37. It's a concept I call thought holes, which are to our thinking like potholes are to a vehicle. And so if we hit one of these thought holes, it can really just derail us. And so to kind of know, and again, anticipating like what they might potentially say, so we don't get totally derailed by it. The whole like treating, another person like we would want to be treated, which is fine and dandy if we want to be treated with compassion, dignity, and respect. But if it's a one-way street where we're treating them with compassion, dignity, and respect at the expense of treating ourselves with that, then there's something off and we need to take a step back and reevaluate. But yes, to me, spiritual abuse is where an abusive person is gaining power and control over a person's spirituality. So between their relationship, it's damaging their relationship with their faith or with their creator. So I talk about this before in other videos. My grandmother was married to a narcissist who was also a minister, and he cheated on her nonstop, and he lied, and he was horrible. He was a horrible human being. And he, I'm sure, damaged her faith in God for quite a while. I know at a minimum, he really damaged my mother's faith in God for decades. Because she grew up in this really toxic environment of like, how can I believe in God when this guy is supposedly, a minister of God, of the word of God, and here he is abusing this. So, he really damaged her relationship. It took her many years to realize that she wasn't going to let anybody come between her and her relationship with God. So, yeah. Okay, let's scroll down and see. Metha asks, is it possible for a narcissist to become involved with another narcissist? Yes. And it does happen, and it just depends on what their, oh my gosh, what have I done? Okay, we're back. I think it depends on what they are seeking to gain from the other person. So if you've got one narcissist who is really focused on money, let's say, and the other narcissist that is focused on sex or public image or social status, then they're still probably going to be using each other, but for different things. Yeah. Elle says they do, but that they fight until one of them gives up and makes the other a bad person. I mean, yeah, two narcissists in a relationship. I mean, talk about like, oh my God, it's exhausting to even think about it. Just drama and dysfunction and chaos and stress and foolishness and mayhem. Like, it's just, you've got two people that have like zero or very low emotional, they don't have any like self-awareness. So it would be like having two children in adult bodies being in a relationship, which is really scary because it's just all about them all the time, so and I don't know, I would be curious to know those narcissists that are in relationships with other narcissists, if they get exhausted by it, like what's their take on it. I don't know, it'd be interesting to find out. Let's see. Let me scroll up a little bit. Christine says, thanks so much, Dana. I really appreciate all your great insights. It has been a really tough, but also very fascinating to learn about this type of behavior. Well, I'm glad that I am able to pass along like, all of this information to you guys, and it is. I mean, I wouldn't want to repeat all of this, but it is really interesting stuff. It really is, and I think you'll find too that kind of the more you heal and the more that you go through like your healing process and that you're going there's always gifts in everything, like there really is, even in abuse, probably especially in abuse. And I know that that sounds terrible to say, but it's true. There's a lot of gifts that we can get out of this, and it's just sort of digging and finding them. So, for example, I think a lot of people that have been abused find that they are even more compassionate, that they are even more empathetic, that they become even kinder, even more considerate to other people. You know, there's lots of good, of gifts. It can teach you about yourself. I think that was a definitely a big thing for me. I had issues, major issues, like in my life with self-esteem and boundaries and standards, and I did not see it. I did not see it for the longest time, and you know, it wasn't until I started doing YouTube, and I think I was like fairly fresh into it, and I had somebody make a comment. They were like, "I really like your videos, but like, what about codependency?" And I got really upset about it, and I made a comment back, and I'm like, "That's just it. Like, my relationships with Jack and Steve did not run the normal course of a lot of narcissistic relationships. Like, there was no obvious devalue stage done to my face." And the more time went on, I began really thinking about that comment. The more I just, and I was talking to I have this one coworker, and she's really big into self help too. And we were going back and forth and discussing codependency and discussing relationships. And she'd been married to a narcissist and has 3 kids with them. And it's been really hard. It's been a long, hard road for her. And sharing different aha moments and insights and all of this, and really realizing, oh my God, like so like some of the gifts I've learned have been to really pay attention to my instincts, and and why, like learning about cognitive dissonance, why I had been glossing over these red flags, and again, like paying attention to how you feel. And that was such a huge aha moment for me. And it was like, oh my God, like this is why my life has not worked on so many different levels. This is like pretty much the cause of every single terrible decision I've ever made. Like, I mean, it's really powerful. I mean, I look back on my life, and I think probably most people can too. When you think back to those situations that have like blown up in your face, odds are you knew when you first bought that house, or when you know what I mean, or started that business, or met that person, or whatever, like you had that funny feeling to not do it, and we did it anyways, and then it didn't work out, and then it was like, well, like it was almost kind of hard to be upset because we knew on some level that this was not, that we were going off the path, but we couldn't pinpoint why. And so in many ways, I'm very thankful for what I went through, because the lessons that I've gained from it have been invaluable. I mean, stuff that I would not trade for the world. And I don't think I could have learned these lessons any other way. Like, I think it had to go down this way. And but a lot of these lessons, like people, it takes hitting rock bottom for us oftentimes to examine what's really going on in our lives. And so I think a lot of people, that don't go through situations like this don't ever have a lot of these aha moments. So, I mean, yeah, learning to pay attention to how you feel, not even just how you feel when things are really off, which generally is that feeling of confusion, So like one of the earliest signs of a problematic situation is confusion. It's that feeling of, wait, what? Like, mm? And then it's followed by this growing confusion of, is it them or is it me? Like, and thinking, making yourself nuts, like trying to figure it out. Like, do I have issues with men or with friends or with, investing or with money, or like trying to figure out like where the issue is, trying to make sense of the confusion that you're experiencing. Those are some early signs of warning, like warning, cognitive dissonance is right around the corner. Like something's problematic. Are you either going to move forward with it or are you going to get away from it? If you move forward from it, it's going to be justifications, which means cognitive dissonance, right? Cognitive dissonance, like it's the yeah, but still. Justification, that's a red flag. Like that's a warning. That language, the way we're describing things, when we're in cognitive dissonance, that justification, that minimization, that denial, that deflection, that blame, warning signs that we're now in a fog, and it's going to take probably a lot of pain for that fog to clear. Huge, huge, huge ahas. Learning how to pay attention to what feels good. So there's something that I've talked about before in previous videos, and with because I had lived a life for a very long time where I call it like settling for crumbs. Like I just was like living this life on default. I mean, I was eating food I didn't really like. I was, had clothes I didn't really like. There's just a lot of stuff in my life that was like kind of lukewarm. It just, for a wide variety of reasons, but then really paying attention to what makes me feel good. And it sounds so obvious, right? But like then doing more of it. So, what I found helpful was to kind of rank the way that I felt on like a number line of, like 0 to 10. So 10 being I had goosebumps, I felt amazing, I felt alive, I felt just like excited and just juiced, like just yes, 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 right? And a 0 was like, ugh, like ice water cold. Like I do not want to do that. And then paying attention to, okay, what does a 5 feel like on that? If a 10 feels like a hell yes and a 0 feels like a hell no, then what does a 5 feel like? And what does a 7 feel like? And what does a 3 feel like? And then kind of paying attention to where I am on that number line, like that emotional number line. And gravitating towards those people, places, experiences, situations that I felt like a 9 or a 10. And like that alone is life changing. And I would encourage you guys to do the same. It's so interesting. And it makes decision making a lot easier. It makes trusting people a lot easier. The more in tune you get with your emotions, and the more in tune you get with the thinking behind why, and that you're able to actually pinpoint it, and the more that you're able to fully realize about these empty buckets, and how you can go about filling them, and paying attention to the warning signs of when these buckets are getting low. And you kind of like have this owner's manual, right, for like how your brain works and how we operate, the better off you are. And then the less likely you are going to be to get tangled up in this stuff. So to me, I don't know. To me, it's super interesting stuff. So, I think you'll find that the more you advance in your healing, the more aha moments you're going to start having about not only this other person and your relationship with them, but about yourself and your self-esteem, and just so many realizations. So I know that you're still fresh out of the hurt and you're still nursing that wound, and that's totally understandable and that's normal. But I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for all of you guys, because on the other side of this hurt is just tremendous amounts of personal growth that you probably aren't going to get any other way. And to just keep pushing forward, and to use all of this pain to give it a purpose, and to turn it inward and use it just as rocket fuel for your personal growth. So that's what I got for you with that. So let me scroll down, because I'm missing lots of questions here. Cha cha cha. S9 Arena says, I'm having trouble with my youngest son. I'm worried about his lack of empathy. He's almost 19 and he has no direction. He used to be in the advanced classes. Well, and I don't blame you. That's scary, right? I mean, I think, I don't know, being a teenager is so tough. It's, we're finding out who we are and trying to develop our own identity. And there's so, like, hormonally, there's a lot going on, and situationally, there's a lot going on. It's this weird dynamic where we're kind of an adult, but we're not really. And it's a hard time. And so I think what really helps all of, like, what we all need really is direction and purpose in life, because that is when we come alive. If we can figure out what juices us, again, going back to that 9 or 10, right? Like, so, like, what really juices us, what makes us feel alive? To me, that's the point of life. Like, it sounds really weird, but, like, the point of life is to truly live it. Like, a lot of people don't live, they exist. And so living our highest and best life means tapping into our passion and going after it. And maybe not starting a business around it, or something like that, but it definitely going after it and incorporating it into our life where we have something that we really, really enjoy. And so, if your child is feeling kind of adrift at sea and there's nothing that he's super interested in, to see if you can kind of help him tap in to that passion. Because once he has the passion, then he'll have the energy. And then the empathy part, that can be kind of tough. And I don't even know. That, honestly, that almost seems kind of like the new normal these days with a lot of teenagers, unfortunately. And hopefully it's something that he'll grow more into over time. So I think all you can do is kind of all the rest of us can do, which is just do what we can do and then let the rest go. Which, of course, is not comforting when it comes to, like, your child, and you want the best for them. You want them to be happy, you want them to be well adjusted, you want them to have direction and empathy and passion in their life. And I guess, I don't know, maybe even talking to him and just saying, asking him, like, what makes you feel alive? Like, what really juices you? Like, what would you do for free? What would you pay to do? Like, what interests you so much that you would pay to do it? And then going and doing more of that and trying to connect with him on that, like, lighting that spark within him. So, oh gosh, Believe in Love says, it will be interesting later to hear what Dana actually talked about this evening because the live stream has been so choppy. Oh, I'm sorry that it's been so choppy. So yes, as somebody was asking when we do the live streams, every Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we normally go for you know, I don't know. They vary in length. 2 hours, a little bit more than 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. And I'm probably going to sign off here pretty soon. Just mainly because we are having so many technical issues. S9 was saying, I'm really worried about him, and now he is refusing help. And Pepper is asking, refusing help. What do you mean by refusing help? And Through the Looking Glass, so that's a great name. It's a very appropriate name. Through the Looking Glass says, I am late to the live stream. I love you, Dana. You're a huge inspiration to me. You've changed my life. You really have. That is awesome. I'm so glad. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Like it's so crazy with the internet to think that, here I am in Michigan, like just kind of this like random person in Michigan that could actually have an effect on somebody I've never met in person. Is just so, it's still like so weird to me. I feel like I sound like my mother. Like, she doesn't understand technology either. So yeah, it is. It's really wild. So I'm glad. I'm very flattered and humbled and honored that I'm able to have some sort of impact, positive impact on somebody else. That's awesome. Yes, Metha says, Suzanne, don't give up. He is young. His brain is still developing. It might just be his age. He might be angry and displaying it in this way. I have 5 kids, aged 35 to 12, and shoot. And they all go through change. Yes, so they say that our brains don't fully develop until I think we're like 26. So, there is time there. And again, like those years are such transitional years. And I think a lot of kids, I can only imagine what it must be like now. There's so many options and there's so much, there's just bombarded with so much, with technology and with peer pressure and with expectations and everything. It's got to be really overwhelming to be a kid these days. And I know 19 isn't like, really a kid. It's a young adult, but still, um, you know. So I would just encourage you to try to keep a conversation open, and maybe doing something like where there's quality time, where you and your son go out, you know, for a few hours every week, and you do something that just establishes that connection between you and him. So maybe you guys go out for dinner, maybe you guys just go out for a Coke, something where there's quality time where you guys can talk, and if he feels like talking, he might start opening up to you, to just establish that connection. I think there's so much that's lost with TV and technology and smartphones and the internet, and it seems like everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and it's really easy to kind of to for these really important connections, for these to kind of easily and understandably just kind of drift apart. So that's a thought too. And I will be so curious to see what other people have to say about this, that have maybe that they are struggling with this with their teenagers, and how to connect with them, and how to um, you know to talk about these kind of tough issues. Pepper says, "You're the best random person in Michigan ever." So that's awesome. I should make a T-shirt out of that. Just joking. That would be crazy and weird. Um, let's see. I could put on the T-shirt "Best random person in Michigan ever" with a quote by Pepper. Oh gosh, everybody's calling me a random person in Michigan. Milt says, "I love you and your work, you random person in Michigan." Oh, okay. Somebody S9 is answering the book club discussion, which got cut off a lot earlier, and says, "I would love a chapter and then a discussion on the live stream." I love that idea. So, are you thinking? Let me scroll down the bottom here. So, S9, are you thinking that we would have the live streams like we normally do, and then we would I would somehow coordinate like which chapter we're going to be reading and discussing that week, and then we would just discuss like chapter 5 of the book Controlling People on that live stream. So Oh, Andrea says, how long does it take to stop obsessively thinking about your ex? That is my biggest problem. Marie says, Andrea, it took me about 3 months. S9 says, Andrea, do you have something you love to do? Pepper is saying, Andrea, try to stay active, stay busy. Yes, 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 and yes. I agree completely. All of those things really, really help. And so, you know, especially if we've made this person, if we've kind of made them our whole life, if we've, and it's a lot of people do this, it's not just us, but a lot of people, when you're in a relationship, and especially if it's a new relationship and you're spending like all of this time with the person, if that relationship ends and there's this huge void in our life, and it's understandable that we would really feel like the loss of this person and the loss of this relationship because there's such a void there. And and then of course to just be obsessively thinking about him because there's now this very giant void in our life. And so yes, staying busy does really help with this. um I don't remember how long it really took me to quit thinking about it. I think I, along with a lot of other people, had a lot of night terrors and anxiety and depression and that kind of stuff. Sadness. Gosh, how long? Maybe it was only 3 months. I don't. I don't really remember, to be honest with you. That was all kind of such a blur, with especially with the thing with Jack. I mean, that was I like it was funny. Okay, not really like funny haha, but just funny. Wow, that's amazing that I forgot about this. I've been having neck issues and for a while now, and I find myself doing this like throughout the day, and I've been going and getting massages on a more regular basis, like once every 3 months versus once a year. And I was thinking it was computer fatigue, or like I need some new bras, or kind of just all kinds of different issues. And then it dawned on me. I was telling my coworker friend that we have all these amazing discussions. I told her, I said, I just realized I had gone and seen a chiropractor back when this whole thing with Jack and I ended, so like 6 years ago, and they had said that I have the same degenerative disc disorder, which my mom also has it, and it easy to get fixed with like physical therapy and stuff, and you can work different muscles and you're fine. I totally had forgotten about that they said I was developing it, and that's why I was having neck issues, and they were surprised that I wasn't having headaches and numbness and tingling. And I remember like, and I was telling her, I said, how did I just like forget about that? I mean, that's crazy. Like, how did I forget about that? But I think it was because I had so much stuff going on in my life. I was so stressed with Jack that it just like it didn't even register on my radar because I had so much other stuff going on. So the point of me saying that is it's amazing once you really get out of these relationships and you start healing and putting the pieces together. I mean, still, even like years later, you're going to look back and it's such a fog. It's a fog that's like slowly starts to lift. And yeah, it's really, really wild. So, but yes, keeping yourself busy. I'm a huge fan. There's a website out there that I talk often about called meetup.com. It's a great way to meet people, to just kind of get back out there again. I would encourage you join like 20 different groups that look interesting within a 50-mile radius of you, and try to make it a point to just really stay busy doing things that you love. And then the more that you keep your brain occupied, especially with like new things, right? Because if you're around new people, you're not going to be talking about your ex, whereas you probably will if you're with friends, right? So it's going to force your brain to kind of just put down the concept of your ex, and you're not going to be talking about them. So it's going to give your brain a break if you're around all different people and you're doing brand new things. So, and it's really fun. I mean, they have outdoor groups, they have groups that play board games, they have groups that like dinner. I mean, if you can think of it, odds are there's a meetup for it. I mean, dog lovers, cat lovers, book clubs. I went to a group the other night. It was on like a spiritual center here in town. They had Reiki. Um, like, it's fun. It's fun. So, and I've met some really amazing, some of my closest friends here in Michigan. I've met through Meetup, and it's a blast. So, yeah. And Elle says, Andrea, don't ignore your emotions. Cry if you want. Talk out loud. Just live through those emotions. If you ignore your emotions, later it'll be hard for you to get back to normal and feel. I agree completely. Just realize this is all just part of it. Like, this is just part of the healing process, and it's okay to feel how you feel. Like, this is where you are, you know? And and I guess realizing too that you're not always going to feel this way. I think it's very easy to get tunnel vision and to think that we're just going to feel this sad and this intense and this lost forever, and that's not true. That's really not true. So, it I think when people tend to be first out of these kinds of relationships, there's a lot of mixed emotion, and a lot of people, myself included, tend to feel like, that maybe we just lost the best thing that ever happened to us. But then the more time and like like that is not the case. But because problematic people are also people, there's probably a lot of good things about them too. And so it's our brain trying to reconcile that, right? So the probably your situation is probably like a lot like our situation, like all of our situation. Like, the good times are really good and the bad times are really bad. And so that is hard. It's hard to wrap our mind fully around that, because normal people aren't like that. So, most normal relationships are kind of more even keel. It's not these extreme roller coaster kind of stuff. So, just like, just realizing there is life after this. Most of your best days have not even happened yet. So, not only can you heal from this, like, you can really move forward and thrive from this and go on to have an absolutely amazing life because of this. I mean, you can take what happened to you, and you get to determine how you use this energy. So I tell this, and I've told this in a couple other videos. So my brother is a personal trainer. And when I had gone through all of this stuff with Steve, I had called him. I was just a sobbing, snotty, blubbering a mess. Like, I was just beside myself. I was so upset. And he was telling me, he's like, Dana, don't waste this energy. He's like, this is the energy. This is like that intense emotion where people can change their lives. And so he had a lot of people that come to him. They had hit some sort of rock bottom. Either it was this really intensely painful relationship, or it was some sort of like intensely embarrassing moment, something that gave him a tremendous amount of pain when they were like, I'm done. And they would come to my brother, and they would radically change their lives. And so I think too, and he was really right about that. Like, that. So when I say this pain can really be rocket fuel for personal growth, I mean, it's so true. I think it's helpful to hear other stories of people triumphing over trauma. And so I'm a big fan of, do you guys know who Chris Powell is? He has the oh shoot, what is it? Like, extreme, like, makeover stuff. I don't even know if it's still on the air, but it's on YouTube. Like, I would, like, The Biggest Loser, or I would watch Chris Powell, like, really empowering stories of people that have been able to just push through whatever they're dealing with and move forward into something really positive. So like, I guess it was for me just seeing that it can be done, or reminding myself that it can be done. And so that might be something that you kind of put in your toolkit too, that, you know, watching other stories of triumph over this, it can kind of help give you hope if you're feeling low. So, and comedy's always good to watch too, and just to give your brain a break, and you know, take a time out. And for those of you that are having nightmares and night terrors and anxiety and all that, there's a couple of really great channels out there for guided imagery and meditation. Oh shoot, what was his name? There's Jason Stevenson is one. Michael Seeley is the other one. I was listening to him last night. Super fantastic. Just really, really great guided imagery. Some of the videos I think are like 15, 20 minutes long. Some of them are like 6 hours. So that can be a nice thing to put on every now and again when you're just needing that decompression. So let me scroll up. Interesting. Rosie says, Dana, I saw a video that I'd like you to see. It's from Simon Baron Cohen. It's called 0 Degrees of Empathy. Let me write that down. I will check that out. And that was Simon Baron Cohen. Very, very interesting. And let's see. And Rosie, thank you so much. I did get your emails for the Spanish translation. So I have just been working a ton, and I am sorry I have not had a chance to get back to you, but I am getting them, and like, it's amazing that you did that. I can't even, like, words cannot even begin to express my gratitude for that. That's just super, super, super exciting. So thank you. Like, thank you for doing that. That is just like, the time that must have taken, I can only imagine. So much appreciated. Martine, somebody, I think if I understand this correctly, somebody had asked him what his screen name means. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because it's in Dutch. And he says it's a made up Dutch word that means corny goat. Where do you guys come up with this stuff? It's so funny. Some of these screen names are just, they're so creative. Oh, interesting. S9 is recommending a TED Talk about body language by Amy Cuddy, and says, look it up. It's really good for self-esteem. Okay. Amy Cuddy, body language, TED Talk. I love TED Talks. They're so, what a great idea, right? Like, I love the concept of TED Talks. So, okay, guys, I think it's time we call it a night. It's late and I gotta get up and go to work tomorrow. So, let's see. Oh gosh, real quick, Martine says, I know this is going to sound silly, but I've met a lot of unkind people and trolls on the internet, and it's made me feel bitter about how people are. They're so fickle. Oh yeah. Like, it's amazing how the internet can really just bring out the trolls, like, big time, and how awful that is. But, you know, again, like, it was kind of what I was saying earlier, you know, with my videos and stuff. I could get 100 great comments, and then I come across one troll who just, like, destroys my faith in humanity. And it's so unfortunate. I think we're all kind of tend to be wired that way. Like we focus, I mean, it's sort of like you could have 10 people that tell you that you're really handsome, but one person that makes some sort of comment that just undermines all of your self-esteem and just erases everything else those other people said. And it's so sad that we're kind of wired that way. But there's so many amazing good people out in the world. I mean, I look at everybody that's here on this channel and then here in the support groups and everything, and it's just like makes my heart smile because there seriously are so many good people. And I mean, look at our support group. I mean, Martine, you've been there since pretty much day one, and you know, between the different groups, there's close to 5 or 6 thousand people. So, and they're all really awesome people. So, you know, don't let a few troll, and I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you. Like, don't let a few trolls sour you on people, you know? So, okay, guys, I have got to call it a night. Um, you guys, oh, Coral is asking, what is a troll? Troll is just somebody who's just mean and hateful and just likes to stir the pot and create chaos and drama and oh, they're just, yeah, the haters. The haters of the internet, and yeah, just not very nice people. It's sad. It's got to be a hard way to live, you know? So, it's, you know, it just sending them light and love because that is a sad, hard way to be all the time. I cannot imagine. So, okay, guys, have a fantastic night. You know, just lots of love to you guys. And thank you for being here. Thank you for all of your feedback and for supporting everybody else. And just, you know, you are not alone. You are not crazy. And you really, really can move forward and not only heal from this, you can thrive from this. So just know that and take care. And I will see you next week at 8:30 on Wednesday. And hopefully I'll have some videos up before then on the codependency series. Okay. Take care. I'll talk to you later. Good night.